The opportunity is chicken.
The opportunity is sunflowers.
The opportunity is honey.
The opportunity is community.
The opportunity is youth.
The opportunity is distribution.
The opportunity is Africa Eats.
Africa Eats, a for-profit solution for tackling hunger and poverty across Africa. Now, we all know the problems of hunger and poverty in Africa, and the solutions are not going to come from governments and NGOs. They're going to come from the private sector. Africa Eats is one of those solutions. We are an investment holding company, a little different than you've seen before. We're 30 companies building the food and ag supply chain across the continent. These are companies that are aggregators of smallholder farmers. They do some processing, and they do distributions to hotels, restaurants, retailers, and others. This is a big, diverse portfolio of companies serving the entire food chain, from seeds to cooking. Now, looking at the numbers, these companies in aggregate did $9.7 million of revenue in 2020. That was up from just shy of $7 million in 2018. And if we go all the way back to 2014, only 8 companies existed, and collectively, all together, they only did $600,000 in revenue. This is a 61% compounded growth rate between 2014 and today. And that growth is speeding up. In the first half of 2021, they earned about $8 million in revenue in total. Looking forward, when we look at the opportunities in front of each of these companies, and we add all that up, and we look at the capital we intend to invest with them, these companies should hit an aggregate $100 million of revenues by 2026. All but 3 were profitable last year. Average margins pre-pandemic were 24%. How did we find these companies? Well, that's easy. They all attended a Fledge Accelerator program somewhere in the world sometime in the last 6 years. And one thing that Fledge looks for when it's finding these companies is capital efficiency. Here's what this looks like in real life. So Obri Tanzania came to the Fledge program in Italy in 2018. When they arrived in the middle of the year, they had done about $200,000 of revenue that year. Fledge invested 20,000 euros, and some friends and family joined in and made about $60,000 of investment back in 2018. And that's all the company needed to be over $1 million in revenue in 2019. Then Africa Eats came along, added 75,000 more in 2020. And the company's on track to do $1.6 million in revenue this year. Oh, and what do? They make cooking oil from sunflowers. They pay hundreds of women farmers 5 times more than they used to earn. And they make sunflower oil that costs half as much as the imports. Okay, and if you thought that was impressive, Rogate Dairy came to the Fledge program in 2020. Fledge gave them $20,000, and 2 of our angels gave them $45,000 more. And that's all the company needed to grow 9-fold to $1.2 million last year. There's been no other investments, and they're on track to do over $2 million this year. The oldest company we have in this portfolio came to Fledge way back in 2014. They had just finished their first year of business. They did $100,000 on $4,000 of investment back then. We gave them $65,000 of capital in total, mostly debt. And that's all they needed to grow to $1 million in revenue a few years later. They've raised some money since then. They did a $2 million Series A that closed last year, but they also did $3.2 million in revenue last year. They're on track to do just shy of $6 million this year. This company, they're a fruit and vegetable aggregator. They literally just buy tomatoes, onions, potatoes, rice, beans, bananas from thousands of smallholder farmers, process them, and get them in the hands of thousands of retailers. Now, we don't own outright any of these companies. We're not a private equity firm. We're not building a conglomerate. Instead, we're building something that feels like a venture capital firm, except that we're not trying to have our companies be acquired. Instead, we're thinking about owning these companies for hundreds of years, growing them to be the next big wave of companies in Africa, and we'll just hold on. And with that in mind, what we think of first and foremost, besides investing in them, is what services can we provide to them to make them bigger and stronger? And so here's 5 examples. The first one is simple. It's financial management and accounting. And to do that, one of our portfolio companies is Built Accounting out of Ghana. that's built something like QuickBooks, but better, and built it all in Africa for African companies. The second one, well, electricity is unreliable pretty much everywhere on the continent. And so we're providing reliable electricity to our companies through solar and batteries. We put in the systems, they pay us for the electricity, they eventually buy the systems back from us. We like to fill in gaps like that. So for example, in Africa, it's really hard to get a truck lease or a truck loan. So that's what we're doing for our companies. We're providing them trucks through leases and loans. Similarly, when emergencies happen, you can't just go to the bank and get a loan or a line of credit or an overdraft. So we're doing that as well. And we're doing it in a way that leverages the fact that we have a portfolio of companies. So we're building out the system where they can save together and they can borrow against that savings so that when that emergency hits, they don't have to rely on us to write the check. They can have their own savings as a group. And lastly on this list, but by no means the last service we'll launch, is insurance. And so, yeah, you can get insurance for the companies off the shelf, but we have 50, 60, and soon to be 100,000 farmers, and only hundreds of them are insured. So what we're going to launch early next year is insurance for our farmers to at least ensure that they always have inputs for the next season. And eventually we'll grow that so that they have insurance for everything. So if the drought or the flood or the locusts show up again, yeah, they're covered and they don't worry about that. And again, the idea is to do it through the whole system. So it's a mutual insurance pool, not some third party earning money based on our insurance needs, but the companies insuring themselves as a group. Oh, by the way, I didn't introduce myself. My name is Looney. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Africa Eats and the only one who's not on the continent. Jumane and Saif, they're based in Nairobi, Kenya. They met while working at a big bank in Africa. And they also happen to be both entrepreneurs. In fact, this whole system is full of entrepreneurs. And the way we can be so small and lean is because we don't run those other companies. They all have their founding teams. They're all running by themselves. We're just here to support them and make them better. Now, the biggest thing they need is more capital. So we are raising $10 million of capital. The ideal mix is $6 million in debt and $4 million in equity, but don't get hung up on that. It's flexible. This is on top of the money we've already raised. We started this company by taking $3 million of assets out of the Fledge portfolio, putting them into Africa Eats in exchange for 3 million shares for Fledge. And on top of that, we added just a little bit of debt to prototype the solar leases. And by the time you've seen this, it's probably over $3 million of equity. For the debt investors, it's really easy how you get paid back. All those services I showed you, they all generate cash. They all generate income, and we've set the amount of income to be sufficient to pay you back. For the equity investors, the story's a little different. We're not looking to have our companies be acquired. We're not fattening them up for acquisition. Instead, we're here to support them to make them bigger. And then we'll take the whole portfolio of ownership and we'll take that public in the form of the holding company. First, somewhere in Africa, probably Nairobi. We'll do that in the next 18 to 24 months. And then we'll do it again in the UK or Europe when we're past that 100 million annual mark. And we've talked to a lot of people to make sure that this is feasible, and everybody says it is. There's some logos of just some of the people we've talked to check this out. And so if you are interested in actually solving poverty and hunger in Africa, then reach out because we'd love to work with you.
Their opportunity is
honey.
Chicken.
The opportunity is Africa Eats.
It is called post-harvest losses. It is more than $345 billion a year, more than the food aid provided to sub-Saharan Africa for the last decade.
African women are enterprising, but African women lack economic empowerment.
The trouble is, there's been overfishing, and today the little fish is all finished.
Geoffrey introduced her to Agro Supply and she started saving. As a widow, she has a permanent house.
We've been able to increase the revenue of our farmers, and €7 is the middle income class in Tanzania.
Mother Nature is under attack by the very people she feeds every day.
We started talking and he told me he has been standing there for 8 hours without selling a single jar of his honey.
Handcrafted, that is made by the locals, designed, built, sold for local consumption.